Welcome to the Answer is Yes podcast, where we interview some of the most interesting people that have said yes to opportunities in their life. We hope that through these stories, you can learn to create your own destiny by saying yes along the way. Join us as we explore the new series covering topics such as passion, integrity, and hard work. I'm your host, Jim Riley, and I hope you enjoy these interviews as much as I do. I believe that everyone has an important message worth hearing.
This week, I have the pleasure of speaking to Marques Ogden, former NFL player, motivational speaker, and author. And I love hearing his vision on life in terms of his 4 key steps. And he talks about ambition being one of them, drive being another, which of course is a big line for me with my Live Life Driven. He talks about hard work and focus. And he's just a wonderful figure to speak to. He's got a great story. And he's got a new book coming out. The title is The Success Cycle. So you'll learn more about it in today's interview and a lot more about Marques. Please enjoy the show.
Hello and welcome to the Answer Yes podcast, coming to you from, well, it's snowing out today. The low is going to be minus 14 here in Montana, but I'm loving every minute of it. I like getting on the phone with people around the country because I know that they're warm and fuzzy where they're at. And today is no exception. I've got Marques Ogden on the line. How are you today, Marques?
I'm doing well, Jim. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. You know, I've got to admit, I am not necessarily enamored with sport, but I am enamored with one's ability to play at a professional level. So I'm always thrilled to have somebody on my show that comes from any one of the big, sport programs out there. And I know you spent some time in the NFL, so much respect for what you've been able to do in your lifetime as being a part of the NFL.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was an amazing ride for about almost 6 years. My brother played for 12 years, so football was a big part of my life for the first half of my life.
I had a business partner that was in the NBA, Bill Walton. We spent a number of years together working. You probably know the name.
Of course.
I just
UCLA grad.
That's right, UCLA, John Wooden. But it just blows me away at athletes' abilities to perform at that level on a consistent basis, to be in those leagues. You're no exception to that. I mean, how do you go day in and day out performing at that level?
Well, you have to have the championship mindset. And the biggest thing of a championship mindset is you have to aggressively solve problems. And when you're playing football, basketball, baseball, nothing's perfect in anywhere in life. But when you are being paid to be a professional at the highest level possible, you've made it that far because your mindset was better than anyone or everyone else who didn't make it to that sport at that time, because that's what has to happen. I saw a post on LinkedIn that one of my clients said that Brett Favre was one of the best quarterbacks of all time. And Brett Favre led the league in interceptions for his career. Mm-hmm. But he also was number 4 all time with touchdowns. And 20-year career, nobody's going to argue that Brett Favre wasn't great, right? You could say he's not the best of all time. You could argue Brady, Montana, but Favre's in the conversation. The point I'm trying to make is, even though Favre had all those interceptions, he had the mindset to put it out of his mind and put it to the side and continue to go forward to reach his target goals of the Super Bowl or greatness. And that's what an athlete has to do. Like a very successful business owner or a very successful actor, anyone that's had a high level of success has had to go through some sort of turmoil and some type of adversity to get where they are today.
I think that's a really critical point, because oftentimes in business or in life, we get down on ourselves for those failures. We mentioned Bill Walton. Bill is a top 50 NBA All-Star player of all time, but Bill is also one of the most injured basketball players of all time. To your point, allowing to look beyond the negatives and focus on the positives, I think it's not easy to do. but it's part of the deal, right?
That's absolutely correct. If you're going to be great at anything, but especially sports where it's high competition, it's a lot of people wanting and vying for your job, it's a lot of pressure, it's a high component to win, right? Like if you don't win in your sport, then what happens? People start trying to find others to take your place. So exactly like you said, you have to put things out of your mind. You cannot allow an injury, or you can't allow some type of negativity to seep into your mind where that's all you're doing is just continuously being negative and saying, hey, I can't do this, I can't do that. Instead of saying, what you need to say is, well, I'm struggling with this, but I'll find a way to get it done. It's kind of like, having financial trouble. You could say, man, poor me, I'm broke, I don't have anything. Or you could say, right now I'm in a tough financial spot, but how am I going to work my way out of it? Mm-hmm. What do I need to do to get myself going? Get another job, right? Do I need to add a second job? Do I need to start trying to save part of my check that I get into some type of an account, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the thing is, I tell you all the time, one of the biggest things that creates confidence in people, right, Jim, is the ability to control your mental focus. Focus on what you have, not on what you don't have.
Very good point. Very good point. Look, I want to take a quick step back because, there's so much that I want to talk to you about. Like I mentioned before the show, I've watched a lot of your YouTube videos and some of your seminars, and there's some key learnings within that. But on the show, I like to tell our guest a little bit of your background and how you got to where you're at today, and that would include some of the time you spent, through college and school and how you made the decision to play NFL. But what really stood out to me in your bio is, growing up in a single parent home with your father that inspired and demonstrated perseverance and fairness. We just had Sugar Ray Leonard on the show a few weeks ago, and his father was a major part of his early success and ambition to be the athlete that he was. Can you talk a little bit about that and what that meant to you and how your father inspired that?
Yeah, my father was an individual who played football. He went to Howard University, same college that I did. He was a football player at Howard. He had a chance to go to the National Football League, but he had a really bad knee injury his senior year. And back in the in the 70s, there wasn't the arthroscopic knee surgery that they have today. Mm-hmm. So my dad married my mom basically like the day after they graduated college. They got married. And they had a very up and down, but they were married for 18 years. 18 years. Wow. So when my parents divorced, I was 8 and my brother was 14. And my father told my mother that, look, you can have the money that you brought in, you can split everything down the middle. You can take everything else, you can sell the house that, they grew up in, you can keep it, put it in your name, all this stuff. All I want is the boys. If you give me the boys, then we can make this very amicable and easy. If you don't, we're going to draw this out and have all kinds of money tied up and things of that nature. Uh-huh. And that's what happened. My mom just said, okay, you take the boys. And of course, I had support from like maternal grandparents and all this type of stuff. But in real terms, our father was big on raising us because he made us understand how to be a man, right? How to respect women and how to respect ourselves. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I feel is so important, is that when you do that, you're setting a standard and a legacy for people to know who you are.
Wow. Well, it certainly says a lot about your father. You went on to attend university and then ultimately pro football. How did that transition and how did those decisions go along the way? I mean, to set your mind to playing pro anything, you really got to step up your game and know that it's going to be a long road ahead of you, but certainly you achieved that.
So really for me, the transition came in when, I realized I was good at football about the last year, going into my last year at Howard. And that's when I started to see people come out to practice, and other people started saying, hey, Marques, you have the ability to play National Football League. And then that's when I transitioned to getting a lot more serious about the workouts and about doing things that I needed to do to become a professional athlete. Mm-hmm. When I was in high school, I didn't want to be an NFL player. I didn't get any scholarship offers except for Howard, and that was at the very end. And I was just trying to go to school for free to be an investment banker when I left college. I worked at Merrill Lynch, and I interned, all that great stuff. But when I got, to my last year, right before my last year, it became evident, and I went to a All-Star game, which was the Hula Bowl in Maui, and I had a really good showing against some top talent from like Florida State, Texas, right, some guys who were some high-round draft pick, projections. Then that's when I said, okay, I can do this. And then that's when I really shifted my mental focus and got more locked in to say, okay, I'm going to transition and get this everything I have. So at least if I don't make it, I won't regret it. Like you talk about your podcast, to say yes. And that's what I did. I said yes to the opportunity of being an NFL athlete if I could just do what I had to do to stay on track, which I did.
I find that very interesting that you had a different mentality prior to that, like you said, investment banking, and then you realized that you had the talent to go into the NFL. Usually it's just the exact opposite.
Yep. A lot of times people are young and they feel that they could be a great athlete in the NFL because they're high school players. Again, I'm 6'5.5", but when I left high school, I was 6'3". Mm-hmm. So I grew almost 3 inches before I got to Howard. So a lot of things people saying, well, he's not big enough for a tackle. He's not physical enough for guard. He doesn't really have the great hands for D tackle. And then when I got to be almost 6'6", I was tall enough for tackle. And I always had decent feet, but I was able to leverage my height and everything else. And it grew. And then, myself saying, hey, I don't know if I can do this. Say, hey, I can actually get this done.
Yeah. Marques, as you transitioned out of football and into, I know you did a little bit of training in Europe and things like that, but as you transitioned out of football into business, you talk in some of your speeches about the lessons you learned moving from football into business and the challenges, including the challenges within your construction company.
Yeah, so I learned a lot of great knowledge and information from people like Jack Del Rio, who was one of my coaches. And the thing I learned from Jack is if you want to be successful in life, you have to be your own CEO. And if you're not your own CEO and making your own decisions and doing what you have to do, don't expect anybody to do anything for you. Mm-hmm. So, and I learned some great things from Brian Billick about accountability. Brian always said, nothing good happens after 12. So you can go do what you want to do, but I'm telling you, out on the street, nothing good happens after 12. So, I learned a lot about accountability. I learned a lot about structure. I learned a lot about, not putting myself in bad situations, right? So the NFL and the coaches I was around and some of the players were just absolutely life-changing. And once I learned how to put that verbiage into regular, everyday content for people who don't play sports, that's when my business took off, my current business now. Mm-hmm. But my construction company, when I retired, I got into it and I said, wow, I still want to have big checks coming in. I want to still make big money. So I gambled and got into construction. Didn't know anything about it at all. Mm-hmm. I became a minority contractor with the city of Baltimore, state of Maryland. And by year 3, I was one of the largest African-American subcontractors in the state, in the city of Baltimore, in the area of site work. Year 4 and 5, I was the largest African-American subcontractor in the city of Baltimore, state of Maryland. And unfortunately, what I forgot, one of the lessons that I forgot from coaches that I learned is when you have success, if you don't remain humble, you put yourself in a really bad position to lose everything. And that's what happened. The company started